As more became known about AIDS, it was discovered not only that the virus could be passed from man to woman and woman to man during unprotected sex, but also that a pregnant mother might sometimes give it to her unborn child. Mandy's son, Andrew, now 9 years old, was born before she met John and was never at risk. But by 1986, John had learnt enough about AIDS to be apprehensive about the risks to himself. More especially, he was concerned about their baby son, John.
I was sort of half expecting John to have the virus as well, because I knew that children can pick up the virus in the womb during pregnancy. Well, after the results came back, the doctor said that Andrew was negative, so he's okay. John was positive, and I was positive. I more or less expected that I would be HIV positive because it's a sexually transmitted disease. So I knew that sort of with a normal, sort of healthy sex life, that I would probably have the virus. So I was sort of expecting that anyway.
Mandy was finally admitted to hospital suffering from AIDS in October 1986.
She died that quick. I was actually decorating in here, nearly hours of the morning. And I thought, well, I better go and grab a couple hours sleep. And I just getting into bed and there was a knock. And it was a neighbour saying that the hospital had been on the phone and could I get to the hospital straight away because Mandy had taken it down for the worst. And they'd already booked us a taxi to take us over. And the taxi came virtually straight away, jumped in, and we were up to the hospital. But by the time I got there, she'd died.
I think just being told that I'm terminally ill on its own would have been hurtful to the point of destruction. But knowing that the family were there made life so much easier to cope with. The fact that the girls are there for me, they'll protect me, they've saved my life. Physically saved my life once already. So being a close family anyway, emotionally we rely so much on each other. We run our family very much as a fun group. There are serious sides to deal with, obviously, any family has that. But there are many days when we'll just take off for the day, just to spend some time together as a family. Speedway is one of the basic things that our family survives for. It's exciting in itself, but it's a safe sport to take a family to, no hooligan problem in it. And it's a very friendly sport.
We wanted to have a baby anyway, and once we decided to get married, we thought that was the next step, was to actually have a child. Meanwhile, all this had happened, and first of all, we talked about it, and Bob said we'll have to see what the hospitals say. So we went up there and we spoke to one of the counsellors, and they didn't exactly say don't have a baby, but they told us all the risks, the fact that I could become infected by actually getting pregnant, and if I was infected, then the baby might be infected, and then the baby might be born with it and die, and the consequences of that. that I could actually die as well once I'd got it. They went all through that, but they really left it up to us, you know, as to what we were going to do. They said nobody can tell you not to have a baby, but these are the reasons why not. So we came home and we thought about it, and we were still very, very keen. And I knew that because he was now HIV positive, that eventually he would probably die. And I just couldn't face the thought of being on my own. And I thought if I could have just a piece of him, a part of him, to bring up, you know, it softened the blow a little bit. And we talked about that as well. We decided we were both still quite keen to go in for a baby. And we went up the hospital again because they told us to go away and think. And we went up again, and they really laid it on the line this time about the risks. And they did say to Bob, you know, by actually getting your wife pregnant, you could kill her. And it really hit him hard, and I knew he loved me, you know, very, very much, and he just wasn't going to do that. And I know when we came out, he said, they're right, I don't think we ought to have a baby. And he was really upset because he loves kids. But fortunately, I was already pregnant, so we'd done it. Thank God.
I haven't got any toilet something in it.
Well, just push your trolley round, I'll find you some shopping.
My purse!
My actual desire to have a family was a little bit less than Sue's because I've already got 2 children by a previous marriage. But Sue was obviously wanting one, quite desperately, really. We were having to use condoms, which didn't suit Sue at all. So virtually, you could say our sex life disappeared.
Hello, Sue. I'm Tara.
Hello,
Sit down.
Sue. We've been undergoing counselling from our local hospital, and when they first found out that we were still interested in increasing our family, they put us in touch with the British Pregnancy Advisory Service, who we found to be most helpful and supportive.
Talk to me about any difficult areas or feelings that are coming up for you, if that's what you want.
Yeah, well, Bob's been HIV positive since 1983. They've talked us through all sorts of different scenarios and given us as much practical help and advice as possible. The main avenue which we've investigated is artificial insemination by donor. With the family which we planned, because at the time of the blood test result, we were actually trying for a second child, but had been advised by the doctors not to go ahead.
In fact, Bob's health began to decline rapidly, and the THREAKALLs decided to give up thinking about another baby. But they still see artificial insemination as a possible choice for families in a similar situation. And they both understand the desire for children, which makes other couples take the risk and have unprotected sex.
Well, it's not personally a risk I would take in any way, shape or form, but I don't necessarily condemn them for having done it. I mean, I can understand the need and the feelings involved, and that they might well think it was well worth taking the risk. And as my wife Susan said, we know of people who've got away with it. But I gather statistically the failure ratio, if you like, is 50%. So it's not really a risk I personally would take. In fact, you may like to know that we actually made a mistake one particular night. Sue and I had too much to drink, and we actually indulged in unprotected sex. And although Sue wasn't hysterical, etc., etc., it was certainly very alarming for her until she found that in about 6 months' time she was clear.
For a couple of weeks, I sort of lived in hope of getting pregnant and everything being okay, and then suddenly it hit me what could have happened. And at that time, I also went down with some sort of a tummy bug, and I had every symptom that was going, you know, from the initial HIV symptoms through to full-blown AIDS and almost sort of dying on the spot. You know, I went through the lot, and it just shows what you can convince yourself you've got when you haven't, because ultimately I had the blood tests and so on, and I was clear. You know, I had 2 or 3 tests over a period of months, and I was fine, and I was lucky. But it's made me realise what you could go through, you know, if you took that risk and failed.